Shab, and I serve as the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in hybrid format, with the meeting occurring in person in the main library auditorium and available to view or listen to in WebEx. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the WebEx system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling local 1-415-655-0001 and entering access code 2489-935-0506. Public comment will be taken both in person and remotely by video or call-in for each item on the agenda. We will conduct public comment with attendees in the CREP first, and then move to WebEx for public comment. Each comment is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise noted. To make public comment when connected by phone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 to be added to the remote queue for the agenda item you intend to comment on. Individuals joining by WebEx should click the Raise Hand button to be added to the queue. Mike Smith with Media Service Operations will moderate WebEx virtual public comment. Mr. Smith will call upon WebEx attendees by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. If we experience any technical issues with WebEx, we will recess and try to address the issue. Please try logging back into WebEx if there are technical problems. Library Commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Ono, Mall, and Lomax Garuduzzi.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to our first meeting in 2023. It's January 19th, 2023, and it's the meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. To those of you here in Corrette, we welcome you and delighted to see you, and we are very pleased to welcome our virtual audience via the WebEx platform. We do have a full meeting ahead of us, and we will start with the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. If you have not already done so, all of the materials for this meeting are available for download on the Library Commission page of the library's website, sfpl.org. Today we have a total of 6 agenda items, and we will begin with item number 1, which is the election of the 2023 Commission officers. This agenda item is the discussion and action to nominate and elect Library Commission officers, President and Vice President for the 2023 calendar year. Before we move into our commission discussion, we will first take public comment for both the President and Vice President position. We will start with public comment from members of the public present here in Corrette, and then move to public comment from members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. Public comment is now open here in Corrette.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director. Is the microphone on?
Yes.
Thank you. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I give the mailing address because I believe that mail does not have the kind of privacy issues that electronic communications have. And for those who care about that, they can reach us in that basically private way. You usually have, one expects to have a motion to discuss with respect to what the nominations might be. And it's a little bit putting the public into a position of not very focused about what your direction is when there are no nominations here before us. I think that's very problematic. I think that most of the people who are here are qualified, certainly, to be chair. but some have qualities that I think are important and valuable. I think that it would be appropriate for you to have public comment after the nominations are made. One of the things that's happened in the past, and which I fully expect today, is that only one person will be nominated for each office. Where is the democracy in that? Where is the competition? Where is the discussion? Even if there's only one nominee for a position, it would certainly be useful to hear what that person has to say about what they think has been going on, what the library needs to do or should do in terms of its direction, in terms of improvements, what are important, what are less so. And I think that it's important for that person to be able to listen fairly and clearly. And for all of the folks, but certainly for the president and vice president to be able to listen and understand what members of the public and others are saying about how the library is functioning. And to demonstrate that, for example, by having and insisting on accurate minutes that summarize fairly what people say. Demonstrating it by, for example, coming out and saying, well, I understand so-and-so is saying such and such, and here's what I think of that. It's a good idea. It's not a good idea for these reasons. And we have almost none of that. The commission has tended to be completely ignoring the public. There is one person who I think is too combative and has in fact violated the spirit, if not the letter of the law, in doing so with respect to public comments, and that person should not be elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Koret Auditorium? Seeing that there's no further public comment in Koret, we will now turn to public comment through WebEx. Members of the public who wish to make public comment on WebEx, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, could you let us know how many people are listening on WebEx today?
Currently, we have 12 people on the call.
Are there any people who wish to offer public comment at this time? If so, please put them through.
Madam President, at this time, there are no callers in the queue. I will pause briefly to call callers to join. Madam President, there are currently no callers in the queue.
Thank you very much. Hearing that there are no public comments via WebEx, public comment for agenda item number 1 is now closed.
Commissioner Wolf, I just want to recognize that Commissioner Bolander has arrived.
Thank you. In a moment, I will call for nominations for the election of our 2023 officers. These nominations will be for Commission President and for Commission Vice President. Commissioners, please be advised that procedurally, no second is required for the nominations of the election of officers. A simple majority will elect our president and our vice president. Please note that each commissioner will have the opportunity to vote, even on a nomination in which they may be the nominee. The first candidate to receive a majority of the votes is elected and serves in the role for the calendar year 2023. There is no need to continue voting on additional nominations for president once a nominee receives 4 or more votes. Commissioners will vote on the nominations in the order in which the nominations are received. First, we will call for nominations for president, and once again, no second is required. Are there any commissioners who would like to make a nomination?
Hi, this is Commissioner Ono. I would like to nominate Connie Wolf for president in 2023.
Are there any further nominations for president? Nominations for president are closed. Seeing that there are no further nominations, we will now commence with voting on each nomination the one, and I turn it over to Margot.
I'll take the roll call on the nomination for Connie Wolf for Commission President for 2023. Vice President Huang.
Is it aye or no?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall. Aye. Commissioner Lomax-Garrarduzzi.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
President Wolf.
Aye.
Our 2023 Commission President is Connie Wolf. Oh, and, well, you've got Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. An honor to serve in this role. We now move to the nominations and voting for Vice President of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. Once again, a simple majority elects the Vice President. Each commissioner will have the opportunity to vote, even for a nomination in which they may be a nominee. There is no need to continue voting on additional nominations for Vice President once a nominee receives 4 or more votes. At this time, are there any commissioners who would like to make a motion for Vice President? Commissioner Mall?
I'd like to renominate, I think, Commissioner Wang. I remember when you were sitting out there asking us some very good questions. And it's lovely that you not only have been on the commission, but are now in a position of leadership. And you've done a great job the past 1 year, 2 years, I don't remember. 2? Okay. Well, I nominate you for 1 more year.
Thank you. Any further nominations for Vice President? Seeing there are no further nominations, nominations for Vice President are closed. We will now commence with voting for Commission Vice President.
I will take the roll call on the nomination for nominee for Vice President Pete Wong to serve as Commission Vice President in 2023. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall.
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Garrarduzzi.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
Vice President Huang.
Aye.
Vice President Pete Wong continues to serve as our 2023 Commission Vice President.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Commissioner Mall, for the very kind comment. It means a lot coming from you, especially. And I just want to say really quickly that I'm just really excited to see this particular year play out, because I think in my tenure so far on the commission, it's been such a privilege to watch the library get to this point where there's so many resources and such a solid track record, reputation among agencies, among libraries in North America, et cetera. And it just feels like we're just getting started. And so I think in 2023, there's a lot coming, a lot of exciting work to be done. So thank you for the vote of confidence to continue serving.
Thank you so much, Vice President. I also just want to add that 2022 was an incredible year. I want to just mark that Commissioner Bolander is marking his first year on the commission. So we had one full 1 year with this commission, and we're forging ahead. And I think we're an incredibly strong team, offering many different perspectives, viewpoints, and very important insights into how the library will continue to be the extraordinary resource it is, almost all due to the extraordinary staff at the San Francisco Public Library. Every single person plays an incredible and essential role. So I think we all feel so fortunate to be sitting up here and working with all of you. So here's to a great year ahead, and thank you again. So now we move to item number 2, which is general public comment. We will start with general public comment from members of the public here in Correct, and then we'll move to public comment from members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. General public comment is now open here in Correct.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. One of the first meetings that I ever attended at a library commission had Fran Streets apparently rather upset. And this was a subcommittee that was called the Finance Committee. And she talked about how she wanted there to be honesty in the dealings of the library with her as a commissioner and with the public. And I was new and didn't really know what she was referring to or what might have prompted her to say that, but it seemed to me pretty startling nonetheless. But I think that now that the library has gotten a 25-year guarantee of funding, thanks to the November election, with very little, if any, standards of service or oversight other than, for example, the number of hours that you're presumably open every week at all of the locations, and certainly no clear assignment of responsibility for the oversight of what the library is doing and what the library is delivering to San Franciscans who voted generously to fund the library generously for another 25 years. The previous two propositions for funding were for 15 years each. I would very much like to see that honesty and fairness and listening and openness to the public and whoever else has an opinion would be demonstrated by the Library Commission, the library commissioners, and the administration. I think that honest and fair minutes demonstrate so far that you're not interested in fairly even summarizing what critics might say, like myself, and that there's no interest in discussing, by and large, whatever it is we say. You have the votes. You are in position to decide. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to say, this is why we're doing something, if somebody asks a question or would like to know what's going on, and to think about what people might say with respect to what it is they would like to see at the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Corrett Auditorium? Seeing there's no further public comment here in Corrett, we will turn to our listeners and viewers via WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the queue, could you please put them forward?
Madam President, there are currently 2 callers in the queue. Caller Glenn, your 3 minutes begin now.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Glenn Rogers. I'm a landscape architect, and I am living across the street from where the Ocean View Library would be located. The new proposal at 100 Orizaba. You know, there's a tremendous amount of hidden costs for this particular location. You know, this was a stream that went down to Lake Merced. The watershed included top of the hill Daly City and the Orizaba Mountain, which is a substantial hill that we have here. And also, so there are a tremendous amount of organic soils that are present. And there's an earthquake fault there. So there's a number of hidden areas there that hidden items that are very serious. Other than that, it's just an attractive nuisance, really, in my opinion, that to bring children to a location where there are such incredible amounts of traffic that are present. And, you know, it would be a killing field, in my opinion, to have a library located at 100 Orizaba. All that being said, the street of Orizaba is a very narrow street, and you can't make it any larger because there's houses that are present there. And then there's this thing called the super blocks, which in the old days they made blocks especially long, the combination of 6 blocks. And this is the type of neighborhood that would be feeding this library with very few alternate routes in order to get to the library. And then when you do get to it, you get to this terribly narrow street. So for all of these reasons and more, I think that the location of this library at that 100 Orizaba is a bad idea. I continue to think that's a bad idea, even though it'd be right across the street from me. I think that anyone that lives in my district, which is District 7, would have a hard time being able to get to this particular library, and children would be especially vulnerable, and the elderly and the handicapped. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you, caller.
Are there any further public comments from the participants on WebEx?
Yes, Madam President. Caller Yoon, your time begins.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Yoon Getty, and I am a current staff member at the San Francisco Public Library. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the commissioners for acknowledging the hard work that my fellow colleagues at the library have put into to keep operations flowing and to help the public. We do our best to create a lively atmosphere and a welcoming atmosphere for all. And moving forward, I hope that this commission continue to acknowledge and understand the needs of the staff just as much as the public, and make decisions moving forward that will benefit for all our staff. Thank you.
Comments?
Madam President, there are no further comments at this time.
Thank you. Hearing that there are no further public comments via WebEx, public comment for item number 2 is now closed. We will now turn to item number 3 on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action to approve the December 2022 Commission meeting minutes. We'll begin with public comment on this item before turning over to Commission discussion and possible action. We begin with public comment here from participants here in Corrett Auditorium. Public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. The minutes, once again, have serious omissions and a number of misrepresentations. Unfortunately, as usual, the experience I have is that the folks here simply will not make changes, even if they're pretty clear as to what needs to be done or even how it's requested to be done. In my general public comment, I'm sure that I said something about the library's continuing touting of Facebook and other social media, and its refusal to include in the minutes the critiques that I have mentioned along a whole range the current minutes as well as prior minutes with respect to Facebook in particular, prioritizing profits over safety, including safety for kids. That's excluded here. And I believe I said that at this time. I also said that the library doesn't seem to carry very basic materials like local papers, such as the Examiner, and others that one would expect to find and that I could find at my local Walgreens, the Washington Post, and USA Today. My point was that I think that in various ways, this basic information that the library is providing to folks is not adequate and not appropriate for a library of this stature and of this very generous funding. I've mentioned before that Frances Haugen had talked to the Senate, testified at the Senate about how Facebook prioritizes profits over safety. And by that, they meant literally that people were having lower self-esteem, sometimes leading to suicides, especially teenagers and teenage girls, and in general, promoting all kinds of violence and problems. That needs to be included. And when you persistently exclude it, it basically says you're not summarizing as you're supposed to under the law, and you're touting without any explanation a whole world of information as well as disinformation and misinformation without even giving any clue to the public about what the problems and the issues and the dangers are of this freebie touting that the library does. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Correct Auditorium regarding item number 3, the meeting minutes? We will now turn to public comment via WebEx operations. Are there any callers in the queue? And if so, please let them through.
Madam President, at this time, we have one caller in the queue. Caller Glenn, your 3 minutes begin now.
Thank you very much. Glenn Rogers. Again, I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that the Ocean View Library, when it is being developed, is having both the transportation solution and the solution for the master plan of the library be separate. And it was always my hope that the transportation plan or failure of that plan would signal that the library's location at 100 Orizaba would be a folly. That being said, to provide the $15 million for the library before the plan, it has been developed, and the transportation plan has been shown to be a failure, is folly again for me. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you. Finished.
Any further comments on this agenda item? We'd like to ask that commenters comment directly to the item at hand. And this is regarding the meeting minutes from December 2022. Any further comments from WebEx?
Madam President, at this time, there are no further commenters in the queue.
Seeing that there are no further public comments, public comment is now closed, and we open this up for discussion and possible action. Are there any commissioners who would like to offer comments? Commissioner Bolander.
Yes, thank you. I just as a matter of, I guess, protocol or clarity, all of the commission meetings are recorded and put archived somewhere. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I was wondering if there would be a way that we could put the link to that in the meeting minutes so that at least it's there for the record. And the reason is when people look at this, they should be able to click on that. That was my only kind of procedural issue, because I do think it's a valuable document to know. Oh, then there's the recording. So
Thank you. We'll take note of that recommendation.
thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolander, for that good suggestion. Any other comment? Otherwise, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 2022 commission meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Lopez, do we have someone to second it?
I second it.
We have Commissioner Lopez having a motion, and we have a second from Commissioner Lomax Garatucci.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall,
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, and we will now move on to item number 4, which is a discussion on the fiscal year 24-25 budget update. So I turn the meeting over to our city librarian, Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to present the library's FY 24-25 budget. This is the third public meeting that we have held to discuss the library's budget, and our library CFO, Mike Fernandez, is here, and he's going to be presenting the budget presentation.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, commissioners. Congratulations, President Wolf, Vice President Wolf. I'm here today before you, honored again to continue our discussion on the fiscal year 24 and 25 budget. So just a quick reminder of where we are on the budget calendar. Right now we're going through budget proposal development. We are bringing those before you for discussion. We are working with our city agency partners, that's the City Work Order Development. We've brought some proposals before you for discussion here today, and we are looking towards February for approval of the budget by this commission, by this body. We do have to submit those to the Controller's Office in February, so it's a tight deadline. And from there, we will negotiate with the Mayor's Office, the Board of Supervisors in June this year, and they will approve the budget sometime June, July, and the Mayor will sign July or August, and funds will become available actually after the Mayor's on July 1st. So I'm sure everyone saw the news already. There was a press release acknowledging that the city is currently forecasting a $728 million deficit over the next 2 years. That's $200 million in the coming fiscal year 24 and $527 million in fiscal year 5. Some of the drivers that they've identified in this projection is really a weakening of the property transfer and the business taxes. That is somewhat offset by strengthening sales and hotel tax, but it is not enough to really get us out of deficit. On the expense side, as you may know, city contracts are going to be open for all the city staff, one of the major drivers of our expenses. So with that uncertainty, they're using the current high CPI to currently pretty high inflation that we've all been experiencing as a placeholder until we know more. They've also identified citywide operating costs and baselines like ours. They've also noted that we've lost some of the COVID recovery funds. The federal government is providing localities and states with funds, and those funds will be wrapping up this fiscal year. So those will no longer be available. Or sorry, in fiscal year 24 will be the last year they're available. And so with that update, we also received the budget instructions from the mayor's office. The mayor's office will have us prioritize her priorities, of course, which is for prioritizing economic recovery, improving public safety, the street conditions, reduce homelessness and transform mental health services, service delivery, and accountability and equity in the services that we provide, and accountability especially on the spending side. General fund departments, of which we are not, are looking at a 5% 24 reduction and an 8% reduction in the following fiscal year 25. The library, because we are self-sufficient, we have our own revenues from the aforementioned proposition to establish our baseline. We simply balance the revenue. So those are our constraints that we'll be operating within. We're also seeking to, of course, maintain the mayoral initiatives. They're asking us to, wherever possible, to substitute rather than add new positions to the budget, but they are not asking us to freeze or they're not also instructing us to not ask for any new positions at this time. But they are, of course, warning us and having us think through what would happen if the outlook continues to weaken from here. So we are thinking of contingency plans. So what does that mean for the main driver or the main source for our budget, which is of course the Library Preservation Fund? In fiscal year 24, they are forecasting will be about $7 million less than the budget that was adopted last cycle. So the budget that you all approved last year assumed $7 million more in revenue than they're currently forecasting. In fiscal year 25, they are forecasting an increase to the current forecast for 24 of roughly $4.4 million. That would bring us to 183.4. And we are carrying in, we are estimating, we carried into this year a relatively healthy fund balance of $30.2 million that we'll be relying on to help balance through this current environment we're in right now. Of course, our budget proposals and our priorities will always be informed by our strategic initiatives that you can see here. We are, of course, looking forward to the next year as we continue to evaluate those strategic initiatives. But you'll see that we've continued to organize around these principles. That's how the BPs of it will be presented to you. The budget proposals will be presented to you. And these are organizing principles that we construct our budget around. As we know, the labor is the staff cost, the labor cost for our staff is the major driver for our budget overall. But coming in close second is of course the collections that the library houses. Here you can see some detail of what we're proposing. We had mentioned previously that we are contemplating a status quo budget. And as you can see here, the collections themselves are very status quo in that they don't change. But as far as fulfilling our initiatives that we had proposed last cycle and that have already funded, we're starting with Native American and African American collection in fiscal 23, and we'll be selecting different communities in future years. The collection audit is taking some time, but this will go hand in hand with the review of subject headings for those areas. As far as the giveaways that were funded in the previous cycles and continue to be, those are ongoing expenses. The proposed funding breakdown would be for Scholars at Home, $400,000, Summer Together, $400,000, Everybody Reads is $400,000. A quick note on the e-collections. Last fiscal year saw a 34% increase, which is continuing to this year. Increasing this budget will ensure that we don't have a dip in any physical collection to cover. So you can see there. And we are still, as we emerge from COVID, we're closely monitoring the budget trends, leaving fiscal year 24 flat, and we'll make decisions for that year once we have some additional data. So we're still in that data collection phase, and we'll continue to adjust as we go. So as you can see, the investment level that we're continuing to hold will allow for continued support for the main branch, bookmobile, and jail reentry service collections. There is a tablet project for the jail and reentry services that will be supported by providing e-resources for inmates that we're excited about. We are preparing, of course, for mission opening day collection. So that is already assumed within our budget, within the baseline, so we're not having to ask for any more funds for that. As I mentioned previously, we're continuing to audit the collections to ensure we have increased representation for our BIPOC communities. We're tracking circulation trends to prepare for the next budget cycle. We're continuing to expand the Scholar at Home program, include boxes for our pre-K. We're also continuing to fund the successful Summer Together program and the Everybody Read programs from last summer. And for e-collections, although the usage is down from fiscal year 22, it's still up actually 45% compared to fiscal year 19. So we're still seeing relative strength there. And over the 5 years, you can see the investments that have been approved and that we have been making within our collections. We're proposing right now to keep that at a plateau. So it's been rising over the last 5 years, but we're proposing to keep those flat for at least for this next 2-year cycle. So I've broken up the budget proposals again by positions and non-positions. So we'll go over the non-positions first. I did want to point out that we did have a little bit of a typo on row 3 there. The total proposed investment should be 250 instead of 377. Apologies for that. We have some proposals here that you've seen before that have now been refined, as we had mentioned we were going to do. Starting with that refreshing the server equipment, we went back and looked, and we noted that we actually don't need to add any funds. We have the existing budget to do that, so we're able to withdraw that budget proposal at this time. Ocean View is also refined to no longer need that investment in 24. Looking at the cash flow, we identified that really wasn't needed. So those are a couple of changes from what you saw last month. Giving you a little bit more information of what these proposals are for. So for the replace and install the air conditioning in the history room at Maine, that's really because that system is at the end of its life cycle. It's original from when the library was built in 1996. And so that request would double the 250 that was already built into the base, to bringing that to a $500,000 project. We do have those vehicles are well beyond their useful life, some of them, and this would be proposing to have 3 vehicles within the fleet refresh for the coming cycle. The CPI increase for state of good repair, just seeing that the way that we've been really affected by inflation, we need to ensure that we have escalating budget to be able to meet those demands, to make sure that all of the previous investments you've made will continue to operate in a state of good repair. As for the reason why utilizing an SF fellow is here, you might wonder, although it's a position as far as it's a person coming in, this is actually, we pay for it through a non-position, that's why it's here. This would allow for a 3rd fellow to come and assist the IT division on their policies and procedures. The DigiCenter book scanner is to replace the one we had that we had through a partnership that has since expired, and so we're left without one. And so this would allow us to scan government documents is in our depository. The laptop kiosk at the main library would be a 12-bay laptop. Check out the kiosk dispenser. That would allow us to enhance the digital access we have at the main now, and in line with what we've done at several locations successfully. For the expanding the library exhibitions, we're seeing a 140% increase in the same period year over year. So we really are looking for funds commensurate with what it takes to put on those exhibitions. And then lastly, the Youth Poet Laureate. This funding would allow us to recognize and engage with teen writers and spoken word artists and establish the Youth Poet Laureate for San Francisco. Here we have, so that was for the non-position side. For the position side, we just took your feedback from the last presentation. So to make it hopefully a little easier to consume this information, went ahead and added the classification title so you can see what those positions are and kind of why that cost differential was there last time, as well as so you can see the head count. Some of these are not necessarily full-time positions, so you can see how many people we're proposing and what the full-time equivalency is. Also, when we add new positions to the budget, they're not funded for a full year. So when we add more than one, sometimes that can get a little confusing. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer. For the building grounds patrol officer, we're looking to, as it says, to extend coverage 7 days a week. For human resources, we're proposing to make 2 investments that will help to enhance our diversity recruitment efforts and implement diversity, equity, inclusion recruitment initiatives. The next one is transition health and safety associates from contract workers. This was touched on before, but just as a reminder, this is actually going to be offset cost-wise from a work order that we currently have. So while these costs will appear in the position side for the first time, it allows us savings on the non-position side. And for the bookmobile, we're intending to expand both on the youth and adult side for full weekend hours. And lastly, we would really like to capitalize on the advances we've made during this hybrid programming to make sure we have enough AV specialist or audio video specialists to be able to record and to make available live stream as well as archive the programming that we have that we're not currently able to do with the current forces. So all in all, this would entail a $6 million additional investment in fiscal year 24, as well. Then some of those costs, because many of those costs are ongoing, that would actually become a $8.2 million increase in fiscal year 25. To give you some context, a lot of these are in facilities maintenance and infrastructure as far as our strategic priorities go. Some of that is driven really because the way we budget for capital projects, they tend to go through the one-time process. So you'll see them, so most often they get funded through there. That is partly driving why that's such a high figure. And I just also want to remind you that because we already had significant capital investments in the fiscal year 24 basis, we're not asked, the reason why the ask is we're able to make asks that's so that's relatively modest. Already included within our base budget for the current for fiscal year 24 is a $15 million investment in Ocean View, $3 million investment in Chinatown, building maintenance assessment at $2 million, information recovery, IT refresh at $700,000, elevator assessment at $500,000, and updating the building envelopes at $250,000. So those are already baked in. You're not having to add any money for those. So those investments will continue to go in and help spur economic growth and continue investments without having to ask for more this year. Looking ahead for the rest of this month, we continue to refine those budget proposals where we can either withdraw or reduce those. As I pointed out earlier, we're doing so. Confirming the work order entries. The work order is a term for when we contract with other agencies. That's called a work order. So right now is really when we start coordinating all of those and continue to do so in January. And next month, we'll bring before you for approval our budget options, and we'll submit to the Controller and Mayor's office as well next month. Thank you, and I'm here for any questions, which I'm sure you'll have.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much for that very helpful presentation. We are now going to open this up for public comment before we have comment and discussion here at the commission level. So public comment is now open here in Correct, and after Correct comments are made, then we will go to WebEx. So public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I've used the term debookification, and I'm still very concerned. I've raised this with you before. This, to me, represents a very peculiar level and a disturbing level of debookification and a kind of glorification of everything electronic, which we've heard in various pieces from library administration. Well, first of all, with respect to priorities, this little dance of circles is a joke. What's on top and what's on the bottom? Where's the mention of books and materials for patrons, electronic or print? There's no mention specifically of, well, let's read it. Premier Urban Library in the middle. Partnerships for Excellence, Literacy and Learning going clockwise from the top. Youth Engagement, Organizational Excellence, Digital Strategies, Facilities Maintenance and Infrastructure. Where's something that's coming out for patrons? you know, I would like to use the barnyard epithet, but I'll spare your delicate ears. This is nonsense. When we look at some of the specifics, we see that ebooks are funded slightly above by my addition to the physical budget. So we've now got an ebook budget that's slightly bigger than the books. But the books are still wildly more popular and wildly more circulating when you get a chance, when you give people a chance to get at them, when you give them improved hours to get at them. And even your own description here talks about, well, I think the latest thing I saw was that books were going way up as libraries are opening and that e-usage is going down. Your own information talks about a drop in e-circulation. Yes, there are advantages and disadvantages, but this de-bookification, while the book demand is very strong, I would like to see budget for reaching all of your patrons that do not have electronic access easily available, who you are grossly neglecting with your publicity and with your materials. Often I've seen long wait lists for a book, especially current books, new books, and the 6 different ways in which you enable e-access, those have available right now for people to check out. That, I think, is biasing and putting a very heavy hand on the scale when you compare the so-called preferences of one over another. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Any further public comment here in Correct Auditorium? Seeing no further public comment here in Correct, we now turn to public comment through WebEx. Members of the public who wish to make public comment on WebEx, please click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through. Thank you.
Madam President, I have one commenter in the queue currently. I will caller Glenn. Your 3 minutes begin now.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for not being in speaking in the right category. But because I think this is important, I'm going to repeat myself so that we're able to have this on the record. Again, this is Glenn Rogers. The $15 million to go to the Ocean View Library, you know, before the plans had been approved, and especially the circulation plan, which presently, you know, has been attempted by the SFCTA, providing housing in the Greenbelt and also providing no access into the Greenbelt with Brotherhood Way and having a circular path around Alamany and down Arch Street is wildly unpopular in District 7. And this whole district will fight tooth and nail for that particular solution to not occur. The idea of taking circulation and ruining it in order to make the library safer for children so that they don't get run over by fast-moving cars is not a decent solution. Therefore, you know, the idea of separating the master plan and the transportation plan is a bad idea. And it is only done in order to be able to go forward with the bad idea of the Ocean View Library at 100 Orizaba. This particular district has a tremendous amount of circulation problems. As I mentioned before, Orizaba, very narrow street. Oftentimes you have to pull into driveways in order to be able to go up Orizaba. And then the streets are especially large, as large as 6 regular blocks. And when that happens, it also makes circulation very difficult. So with all of these problems, I don't think you should be putting a budget in of $15 million for the Ocean View Library until a decent transportation problem has been solved. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Operations, are there any further public comments via WebEx?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue at this time. I will pause briefly to allow wishes to raise their hand. Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Thank you very much, Operations. Given that there are no further comments via WebEx, public comment on item number 4 is now closed. We now turn this discussion to the commissioners for comments, questions, and thoughts. And so I open it up to my fellow commissioners for comments. And I will start with Commissioner Mall.
Thanks. Thank you very much, and I know tons of work went into this. I have a fast question about the, I wish you could go over again, please, the Invest in Main Libraries Safety Enhancement Projects for $4 million. It's on page 20.
We'd be happy. Yeah, we'd be happy to. Sure. So some additional detail on that. Sorry, I skipped over that one. Over the last 2 years, we've been working with Public Works architects. The library is already beginning installing architecturally appropriate safety barriers to augment the height of some of the handrails around the multi-story spaces. So what this project will allow us to do is to install those safety barriers which are compatible with the architecture of the building. So over the last 2 years, Public Works architects have been studying our space, looking for the best way to fit in safety measures, and what they've come up with, this is around roughly $4 million of safety enhancements. It was roughly $4 million in safety enhancements.
And will this work be completed in a year, within a year, or what?
Maureen might want to take that, but I think that's we're probably a little too early I don't think I've seen that schedule.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner Mall. I would not say that it would easily be done within a year, but we definitely want to make sure that the funding is available. We'd have to work with Public Works to determine if this is a contract work that would be put out to bid, or is it something that the Bureau of Building Repair would do on behalf of the city, and that's a bureau within the Department of Public Works. So we would have to determine, in consultation with them, what capacity would be done either internal with the city through the Department of Public Works, or if we would have a contractor come in and do the installation.
I understand, but based on the apparent need for these safety measures,
right?
Based on the history and some things we've witnessed, it seems that this is sort of an urgent matter that would hopefully be up there in your priorities.
Yes, it's definitely a priority project for us, and then this would allow for the proper cash flow needs. So whether the item goes out to contract or the Bureau of Building Repair does the work, then we want to make sure that we have the cash on hand. This allows us to make sure that the cash is on hand early at the start of fiscal year 24, but we can continue to complete the design work and be prepared for the actual commencement of the physical work early in fiscal 24.
I thought a lot of this thinking had been done already.
Yes, and that's why we were able to put into the budget the $4 million estimate. So we've done the design considerations, and it's a matter of then moving the project forward through the permitting process, as well as determining again who is it that would actually provide the actual installation of the safety.
Yeah, no, I understand all that, but some of this money is fungible. So, I mean, it's not like we don't have that money.
Well, we have spent some money in the current fiscal year to get the design work done and the original estimates from the Department of Public Works, so that we would know the amount that we need to put in the budget.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Mall. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Mike. Could you, I just want to make sure I'm understanding, like making sure that the numbers are tying well. So if we can go to the page numbered 15 on the budget environment. So at the bottom, it says LPF estimates FY24 is coming in at 7 million less than the FY24 adopted budget, with coming into, or at the end of FY23, we had a balance estimate of 30.2 million. Okay, so does this then, so we're already, like the LPF revenue source is going to be 7 million less than the adopted budget, and then tacking on the proposed investments on page number 22, we're saying for FY24, it's new investments of 6 point roughly 1 or 2, a mix of mostly like one time. So does that mean we're like projecting that we're going to head into, or like after like FY24 year end, we're going to be, what is that, like 7 million less minus another 6 million of additional investments leaves 17 million, give or take, in the fund balance at the end of FY24.
So the yes and no. So what's missing from here is that part of the adopted budget for fiscal year 24 assumed we would have close to $4 million that we would put back into the reserve.
Okay.
Which with the $7 million shortfall, obviously we're not going to put anything back in the reserve. So that buffers that by was 3.9 million. So that buffers it to some degree. So we would be assuming a little bit less than that. So in next month, we will go into a little bit more detail of how 25 starts. So and that's why I also wanted to illustrate that we had this $21 million of capital investments already baked into fiscal year 24. So the nature of these investments is essentially that because they don't carry over, they're not baked into the 25 base. So if we were to continue this at this level, then yeah, that would be an more accurate read of what we would be looking at going into 25. But since all that one time comes off, then that's not quite the right way to look at it. But
right.
I see what you see.
You're saying the right framing is like if we are dipping into the fund balance, it's primarily due to the capital investments and not the sort of changes that we're proposing to the budget on these pages here.
I would say
because
that,
on an ongoing basis, those capital investments aren't going to be there, and like this is not saying that we're going to be like getting close to situations where we're like regularly dipping into the fund balance, year over year over year.
Exactly. So we're not at the point with ongoing expenses where our ongoing expenses are exceeding our LPF revenue. Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Great, thanks. That's very helpful. Further, Commissioner Bolander.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment on the safety improvements. We have temporary safety improvements in right now, right?
Yes, that's correct. I want to assure the entire Library Commission that this main library safety project is a top priority. And just to give you some additional context, we started with the stairwell.
Yeah.
That is completed. We've sealed up the 4th floor. Currently, the 3rd floor has netting up. So this project is designed to make that more elegant and match the other safety improvements that we've already made. If you walk through this building, there are numerous light wells that currently have black netting. And so we have temporary mitigation, but it is going to require a significant investment to make it look the way that we want it to look throughout the building.
Right. So, but from a safety issue, we're mitigating the safety concerns. Those have been implemented. This money is to make it a little more integrated with what it would actually look better, for lack of a better word.
Exactly.
And so the criticality of getting it done, of course, we want to get it done, but the safety issues have been mitigating as best that we can with these temporary measures.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, we're also bumping up against our sister department, the Department of Public Works, their capacity to get this work done.
Understand. Okay. And then on page 21, on position investments. So for FY25, we don't have obviously head counts and FTE and headcounts, but some of the investments are going to be going up, it seems, or are there adjustments? It was unclear to me, as an example, the one that's the most like media production specialist, as an example, it not almost doubles, but it's another, what, 250 grand? I'm assuming that's FTE increase? Okay. I got confused. I just want to, I'm assuming when we look at the 25 budget, we'll see the comparison. Okay.
So that's why I put in the head count to hopefully make it a little bit more clear. I know it's still in budget teas, if it were, as you were. But yeah, that 2.37, because you have the 3 head count next to it, those are 3 full-time. So that 2.37 in 24 becomes 3 in 25. Plus, on a annual basis, they're assumed to have cost more. We don't know what those contracts will look like, but we're going to assume there's COLA increase, and then the fringes, of course. So that would be the salary side, as well as the fringe costs. We assume will go up also in 25 relative to 24. So
Okay.
on a per year basis, folks get more expensive, and then in 25, that 2.37 becomes a full 3.
But I mean, would it be that much more? Because it seems like it's not tracking in terms of percentages. That's what confused me.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of an artifact of that position, the way it's been entered in.
Okay.
In the next month's presentation, we have it trued up. Basically, we're doing all this work on a side table, so
Yeah.
these will all be entered into the system, and we'll have a better. This was our best guess in January, and so we'll have better numbers for you in February.
No. I mean, again, budgetese, I don't speak yet. Apparently, I need to get more educated on that. I speak other E's, but not that. Okay. No, this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bolander. Any further? Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you for the presentation. On the non-position investment, and I think this is more of a clarifying question. For the youth engagement, the youth poet laureate, can you explain that line again? My understanding is that it will $30,000 are going to be invested in 24, but then I don't see any amounts on fiscal year 25. Is it because it's going to be continuous? That's the idea.
Yes.
And that's for I think I was confused. A non-position that could go away in future years. Is that why it's a non-position?
No, so it's non-position because it's not a new city staff person. So thank you for the question, and give me the opportunity to clarify. We have a column for one time and ongoing. That would be the column next to FY24 original. And because that's an ongoing expense we're putting in 24, it's assumed that would be built into 25 and future budgets. So making this investment on an ongoing basis would put it into our base going forward. So the 30,000 we invest now in 24 will continue in 25. If we wanted to take that 30,000 and say double it, and we wanted to give out 60,000 in awards in 25, that would require an additional 30,000 investment in 25 over and above.
And again, trying to wrap my head around this. So for that particular item, it is not a salary, it's an investment. It's for all the costs, including promotion or whatever it needs, right? It's not to pay the one person.
So for this, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Dr. Lopez. This, just as background, we have the San Francisco Poet Laureate, and the cost of that program is roughly $35,000 a year, which we pay in the form of a stipend to an individual. The Youth Poet Laureate program that is being considered and under development right now with some partners in the community, this $30,000 investment would be structured in the form of scholarships, because we're talking about young people that there may be tax implications, or they may not be in a position to accept the same level of compensation, but we still want to support these youth and their future. So we're thinking of this money as money that we could deposit into like one of the city's kindergarten to college accounts. So that's how we're looking to structure this. But it is still very much under development. So this funding is somewhat of a placeholder as we consider how we can move this forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That makes so much sense.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any further comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Ono?
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for your presentation. I know you just got the mayor's instructions right after we had our meeting last time, and I really appreciate how you incorporated all of her priorities into our budget. I do have one question on page 16, where we show the budget priorities. These are the public library's strategic priorities that we've been living under for budgeting. So that's why this chart is always included. So as we go forward with a different strategic plan, it might change, but for the budgets that we are looking at now for 24 and 25, we will continue to have these priorities. Is that
Yes, thank you for the question, Commissioner Ono. Yes, that is correct. These are the library's strategic priorities, and that's what the budget's built upon. And as we go through the strategic planning process, that will inform what this could look like in the future, and we'll have the opportunity in a year's time to make adjustments.
Okay, thank you. And on page, no, I can't, the physician investments, you had mentioned that the HASAs are going to go from contract to library staff, and it was going to be offset because of work orders. So currently they are on work orders with another agency, and that's why they will now become library staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we send money over to Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. They have a contract with Haluna Health that employs the workers on a contract basis, and we would take those and make them actual city staff. So we would employ them as library staff.
And that's why you were talking about labor costs and everything. Yeah, I'm just doing some clarification for myself right now. And the other, on the next page, the proposed new investments, is that chart new, or am I just didn't see it before, or?
Yes, this chart is new.
Yeah, no, I like it. No, I like how you broke it out. That's why I said, was I missing this in other budget presentation? No, it just makes sense to me that you break it out that way, so I just appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Commissioner Ono. And we turn now to Commissioner Lomax-Garducci.
I know. Thank you so much, Mike. My question was about, the bookmobile on page 21. So it's a matter of just expanding the hours, and where is the bookmobile primarily servicing at this time?
We have our Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships here. Michelle Jeffers oversees bookmobile services, so she can give you a brief description of current service delivery and what she's envisioning with this additional capacity.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Commissioner Giarduzzi, for the question. So we are all over the city with the bookmobile, of course, and we are the regular service to Treasure Island, but also to a number of senior centers, preschools, elementary schools, and other special events. And where we find is that we have become so popular and requested at so many weekend special events that we are hoping for the additional staff to help us do more of that outreach work. If one of our regular spots is also city parks, so we go to the city parks all week long too.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sure.
And I have one more question about the HASAs, I'm not sure if you call it the HASAs, but basically the converting them into library staff. Do we currently have any of them that are staff besides being the contracted workers, or will this be the first time that we're actually taking that really remarkable program and transferring them into library staff and building it
first
into the
time.
base
It's
buddy?
first time.
Yes, we have a social worker program, and we've always depended on our work order agreement with the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing for this capacity. And it's a contract that they hold with a private entity, nonprofit, I believe, that employs these HASAs. And so we're looking to transition them to city employment, full benefits, and make them part of our team.
I think that's remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the commissioners, questions? Well, I just want to add that budgets, I love budget discussions because as we just witnessed from all of these comments and questions, it not only is understanding the numbers, but it really illuminates what actually happens and how the dollars are spent. So all of the commissioners' comments and questions really helped illuminates a new program for the Youth Poet Laureate, understanding the idea of making these staff members who have been, these contract workers who have been essential, giving them new opportunities to become staff, and all the different kinds of programs moving forward. So thank you to you, Mike, for your great presentation, and to all the staff for all the work that goes into really thinking about what the priorities are moving forward. I think it's going to be great what we look at next year, possibly with the strategic plan coming online, and that's going to be really exciting. We'll have a brand new chart, Commissioner Ono, to look at. Or not, or we'll see how far we get in the next year. But I just
make sure Randy has his input on the chart.
Okay, fine. Okay. But I just want to say thank you. This is always a rich, rich discussion about what we do for our community and our patrons. I just want to remind the commissioners that at our next meeting, which is soon because it's only in 2 weeks, we will have one more opportunity to review this before voting on it. And there will be more information and some opportunities to kind of weigh priorities as they're presented. So thank you very much, Mike, for your presentation, and to the whole team, and to the commissioners for your great comments. So we will now move on to item number 5, which is the city librarian's report. So I turn this over to our wonderful city librarian, Michael Lambert.
Thank you so much, President Wolf. We have a number of reports this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter. Naomi Jelks is our Racial Equity Manager, and she's going to be presenting on More Than a Month, Black History, Culture, and Heritage here at the San Francisco Public Library. Naomi?
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, all. I'm Naomi Jelks, the Racial Equity Manager for the library, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our Black History Month programming, More Than a Month. More Than a Month is San Francisco Public Library's celebration of Black history and futures, focused on the themes of resistance. Beginning on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday weekend, during Black History Month and throughout the year, the library champions Black leaders and change makers in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. The art that we're using for this year's campaign is on the screen, and the image you're looking at is an image of Dr. Maya Angelou, drawn by Bay Area artist Lava Thomas. It is a study for the Angelou Memorial commissioned by the San Francisco Arts Commission, which will be installed near the Larkin Street entrance of the Main later this year. A little bit about the artist. Lava Thomas tackles issues of race, gender, representation, and memorialization through a multidisciplinary practice that spans drawing, painting, photography, sculpture, and site-specific installations. Drawing from her family's rich Southern roots, current and historical socio-political events, intersectional feminism and African American protest and devotional traditions, Thomas's practice centers the idea that amplify visibility, healing, and empowerment in the face of erasure, trauma, and oppression. Look for future programming with Lava Thomas about Dr. Maya Angelou as we get closer to the memorial installation. Some of the programs we'll be offering. For January, February, our On the Same Page author is Alyssa Cole. Her book, entitled When No One Is Watching, is our featured February title, and she'll be in conversation with one of our librarians here at Maine in the African American Center, and it's a hybrid program. So those programs are fairly well attended, and so we're excited to welcome her here, and there's an associated book club for our patrons to attend the program, but also read her book. Also in the African American Center, we will be offering a program entitled Love Letters, and it's kind of riffing off of jazz and blues music to inspire patrons to write themselves, a spouse, a loved one, a love letter, and kind of just be in community with each other. We really think it's important to, take steps to find spaces for our communities to do that and use our spaces. One of my favorite programs this year is going to happen February 3rd, MJ's Brass Boppers. They're a second line. It's a second line performance. So any of you folks who've been to New Orleans, you're probably well versed with second line. So the idea is they'll start the musical procession in front of City Hall, cross the plaza, and end on Larkin Street. So it's a really great way to direct people to the library, but also activating the space in the Civic Center area. Two events that happened earlier today: San Francisco's Black-led marketplace called In the Black. It's an actual physical space in the Fillmore, and it's a space that is Black-led, vendors and small business people. And there's these two programs happened in our virtual library. And so folks will walk through In the Black and had the opportunity to learn more about the Black-owned businesses in that area and ways to support them. Also, in support of small businesses, we had a program earlier today entitled 4 Secrets to Manifesting Clients with Khadija Yancey, and her business is Bloom Into You. So she offers small business coaching, specifically for Black entrepreneurs, but really anyone who's interested. We have a range of author talks happening in the library. So our first program, which already happened, with Poet Laureate Tongo Eason Martin. He was in conversation with Dr. Mary Emma Graham, and they were reviewing or talking about a new biography about Margaret Walker, who was a poet and writer from mid-20th century, an important African-American poet and writer. We also have local poet and writer Thea Matthews, who will be presenting her newest book entitled Unearth the Flowers. And also from the Bay Area, James Cagney and Daniel B. Summerhill. They'll be in conversation sharing a little bit of some of the new works that are in Cagney's new book, Martians, and that's in the Hormel Center. I also wanted to highlight some wellness programs we have going on in the African American Center every Wednesday. There's meditation in that center. We love our partnership with the National Park Services. They'll be presenting in the virtual library, talking about buffalo soldiers in the national parks. And a really important program happening at the end of the month, February 28th, with the San Francisco Reparations Committee, sharing the work that they've been doing to date, the history of the reparations movement, and just an opportunity to engage local leaders who are involved in this important work. My favorite are the book clubs and the films. So my recommendation, of course, for the books is our On the Same Page selection, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, although there's a nice selection of books to choose from. And on the film front, I would definitely check out Judas and the Black Messiah and Black Panther. I think the director of both are Ryan Coogler, Wakanda Forever. He's from Oakland. Those are wonderful films and a great way to, again, be in community with folks in our branches. Looking a little bit about the programs we're offering for youth. So we have a range of youth programs that we're offering that cover storytelling, movement, and music. And so with these slides, you'll see some familiar faces, such as Kirk Waller. We love Kirk. He'll be at Western Addition later on this month. In addition to Clara Kamundi and Muriel Johnson, they're all storytellers sharing folk tales originating in West Africa or just like dealing with African American folklore as a whole. So those are really popular with the littles. Some of my favorites for young people, Ashiba and Six Roses. Ashiba is a wonderful storyteller. If you haven't had the opportunity to sit on his programs, kids love him, parents love him as well. So it's really exciting to have him back in our spaces. In addition to Six Roses, who've played extensively in the Bay Area, they're a jazz jazz duo, excuse me, and they're going to be in 2 of our branches as well. Rounding it out, Keenan Webster, Fauna Solomon, they are on the musical end. Keenan Webster, he does great work in demonstrating how to use traditional African instruments, sharing that with young people and their families, and interweaving that with, some of the West African languages that, he uses in the work that he shares with the community. In the movement front, we've got Jarrell Phillips. He's a capoeirist. He's a favorite of ours. He'll be here in Maine, so we're stretching it out a little bit. Our more than a month celebration happens from MLK Day weekend through February. Jarrell will be performing or presenting in March. Unique Derek is another favorite, Bay Area favorite. He's going to be presenting at the Bayview branch. And Maria Young, she'll be doing West African dance at our Ingleside location. So something new that we're, really trying to intentionally ensure that we're pulling through cultural programs throughout the whole year. So February is Black History Month, yay, but we also want to present these programs throughout the year. So the Cultural Awareness Committee at the library is ensuring that we do that for every month, that the community, we've heard the community, they want to see these programs year round, and we're embarking on ensuring that happens throughout the year. I also wanted to give a shout out and a thanks to the Friends of San Francisco Public Library. They underwrite much of this great public programming that we do, and to extend many thanks to our staff here, both the youth services librarians, the adult services librarians, and CPP for leading the charge to ensure that we have robust programming in our communities to get people into our spaces. I want to leave you with this quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. I always knew from that moment, from the time I found myself at home in that little segregated library in the South, all the way up until I walked up the steps of the New York City Library. I always felt in any town, if I can get to a library, I'll be okay. It really helped me as a child, and that never left me. So I have a special place for every library in my heart of hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. And I'll just add one more program to that lineup that we're putting the finishing touches on. It's a joint celebration of Black History Month with Lunar New Year. So it's going to be Wednesday, February 15th in this space. Got an incredible lineup of Asian and African drummers, rappers, incredible talent from around the Bay Area. So I hope the public will join us for that. February 15th. Wednesday at like 5 o'clock, 5 to 8 o'clock here in the Cred Auditorium. All right, our next presenter is Nicholas Ott. Nicholas is the digitization librarian here at the main library on the 5th floor in our Digi Center. And he's going to tell you about our DIY Digi Lab. Here you go. Here's the clicker. She can just hit that right there.
Good evening. My name is Nick Ott, and I'm a digitization projects librarian in SFPL's Digi Center on the 5th floor of the main. On December 4th, 2022, the Digi Center opened its DIY Digi Lab, a personal archiving workstation for public use. I'm here to share some information and stories about the lab, how it works, what it is, how people have been using it so far, and how it fits into the scope of the Digi Center's responsibilities. Before I begin, I'd like to thank California Revealed, a California State Library initiative that helps heritage organizations digitize materials for the DIY DigiLab's initial funding, technical advice, and some setup assistance. Now let's get started. What is the DIY DigiLab? It's a place to digitize your personal photographs, videos, tape recordings, documents, and home movies. It's a place to learn about digitization hardware and software tools. It's a place to access your recorded memories. And it's a completely new service for SFPL library card holders. The picture here shows the workstation with the equipment, furniture, and signage on the 5th floor in what used to be study room 540. You can see from this slide the variety of materials that people can digitize using the lab, several types of video and audio tapes, photographic prints, slides and negatives, documents, and some types of film. The video and audio machines are connected to a Macintosh computer with software to read and translate the analog original into a digital file. The following slide will explain this in a little more detail. While the lab currently offers a good selection of equipment, we are considering purchasing more to digitize additional formats, depending on the availability of the obsolescent playback machines and patron demand. Currently, we're looking into a mini disc player and 5¼ inch floppy disks, although those are hard to translate to modern equipment, so we're working on that. How does the lab work? It uses a few different kinds of software and hardware to digitize materials. All the visual formats on tape use something called the Elgato video capture device, which is simple and effective. We decided on GarageBand for audio formats because it came with a computer and it's relatively easy to use. The trickiest setup is for the Wolverine, which digitizes 8mm and Super 8 film reels. Two-dimensional objects are scanned with a high-quality Epson scanner using the out-of-the-box software. The lab does not have Photoshop or any kind of photo editing capabilities. It's solely for digitizing and organization. In order to facilitate the do-it-yourself aspect of the lab, all the workflows are available for download and perusal through the lab's SFPL webpage. We ask patrons to review the appropriate documentation before their session begins. We've also included instructions on how to format an external storage device for use on both Mac and PCs to make sure that DigiLab patrons can access their materials on whatever computer they use. The first time patrons use the lab, we walk them through the digitization process for the formats they have brought, with the idea that they themselves will be responsible for the majority of the work after the initial orientation. In the first month of usage, most lab users have caught on pretty quickly and were able to utilize the machinery themselves with relatively little assistance from us, but we're always there to help them when they need it. Currently, the lab is open for individual 3-hour appointments twice a week, Sundays and Tuesdays. Sessions are 3 hours long because analog formats have to be digitized in real time, and also to allow for a few minutes of orientation and setup at the start of each session. Patrons sign up via an online appointment system linked to the DIY DigiLab's webpage, and appointments can be booked up to 30 days in advance. The lab's webpage also explains how to prepare for your visit and what to bring and what to do once you've arrived here at the library. When a new user arrives at the lab for their appointment, they meet with a DigiCenter staff member for their brief orientation. Then they sign a waiver concerning copyright compliance and risk of damage to their materials. And then they get started. From there, DigiCenter staff, are, like I said, are on call via the reference desk to assist as needed. So far, the DigiLab has been extremely popular and has been booked ever since it opened. For the month of December, we had only 7 appointment slots, but they were all taken. We had 782 visits to the website with 578 unique visitors. 5 of those unique page views were in Spanish or Chinese. The number of unique visitors, along with the anecdotal feedback we've received from patrons via chat, email, and in person, indicates that there's a high interest in the DIY DigiLab. As stated, we're currently open for 2 3-hour appointments each week, but that's not enough given the amount of demand we've received, so we plan to open a 3rd appointment slot beginning in February. We're also planning for the next phase of the DIY DigiLab to include more than 1 workstation. The DigiLab is part of a loose network of similar programs and services across the country that offer technical and educational tools for people to digitize their personal archives. Above are a few examples. The first digitization lab that I know about at a public library was in the Washington, D.C. system, and they've offered us many pieces of advice and helped our project out quite a bit over the years. We've modeled some aspects of our services after those used by these institutions and have received helpful suggestions from their librarians and techs whenever we had to reach out. The numbers abstractly show public interest and demand for the DigiLab service, but patron stories paint a much richer picture. Here are a couple of anecdotes about our December visitors. The first lab patron on December 4th brought in videotapes that she'd recorded but never watched from 25 years ago, and she was able to see her child, who was a toddler at the time, and who's now a 20-something, back when he was a kid. She hadn't seen that tape since she filmed it. The week before Christmas, we had someone who brought in 2 very different items from her personal and family history. She brought in an audio cassette of computer-generated music that she had composed as a student when she was at Columbia in the 80s. She'd written the Fortran code and used punch cards for the initial input. And she told us she planned to play it for her daughter for Christmas, which I thought was kind of nice. She also brought in her mother's school graduation record, which was in Chinese calligraphy that her mother had carried when leaving China for Taiwan during World War II. So that was really cool to see. As people continue to bring in their obsolete formats, unlocking treasured memories for themselves and their families, they may also consider their items of interest to the San Francisco History Center or another archive. In this way, the DIY DigiLab can serve as an introduction to archives and special collections and can bring the SF History Center important personal papers that could help diversify its collections. The DIY DigiLab is just one aspect of the DigiCenter as a whole. We also provide in-house digitization for SFPL's archival materials and government documents and make them available as digital collections via SFPL's digital asset management system, digitalsf.org. The center consults and coordinates with multiple library departments, including catalog, IT, the San Francisco History Center, Book Arts and Special Collections, the Government Information Center, and also the branch libraries. You can think of the DigiCenter as sort of a trifecta of activities, as shown here in the slide, showing our new wall display case. We digitize selected library materials. We manage the website and related software system that preserves and presents the resulting digital collections. And we help members of the public learn how to digitize their own personal archives. In this way, we connect the public locally and from all over the world to San Francisco history, San Francisco government, and San Francisco communities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Nick. We are so fortunate to have your technical expertise shepherding this project. Thank you. All right, our next presenter is Michelle Jeffers, Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, and she's going to tell you about our partnership with the California State Library to offer free passes to our state parks.
Is that too low? Okay. Can you hear me? I am Michelle Jeffers. He was correct. And I'm here to tell you about the California State Library Parks Pass program, which is a program started by the California State Library and state parks to provide free vehicle day use passes to all, not to all, but to most state parks in California. I consider this just really one more tool in our toolbox of all the ways that we encourage people to read and also get outside, whether it's through Discover and Go, whether it's through our longstanding partnership with the National Park Service, whether it's through our local partnerships with Rec and Park. But now we've filled the void with the state parks being important partners for us. These park passes are available to check out at all San Francisco Public Library branches, our bookmobiles as well, and also all 1,184 public libraries in the state. So we're not the only ones with this one. Here you can see one of the gems of the state park system is, of course, our own Candlestick Point Candlestick Point State Recreation Area. And this is also what the pass looks like when you check it out. It's a dashboard pass, and it provides you with entry. It's got a barcode on the backside, and it provides you with entry to the parking lots that are available at state parks. The barcode is scanned, and then you're allowed entry. We started this program, or they sent the passes over to us back in the spring, but was limited number, so we allowed them to be checked out for just 1 week at a time over the summer, so we could get as much use out of them as possible. But in November, December, they were able to send us a considerable additional supply of them. So now I think we have, 695 passes for San Francisco residents, and as of December 31st, they've been checked out 800 times. And they have gone to a 3-week checkout, so you have more time to go visit a park while you have that pass. To encourage the use of the passes, of course, we're all about the book and movie list, so we did create lists of where you can find nature, movies celebrating the great outdoors, bear hikes and walks to inspire you on your journeys outside. And then we also created this list because although San Francisco is a wonderful city, it only has Candlestick Point as a state park in our city limits. So we wanted to show people what the neighboring parks in neighboring counties would be available to be used with the passes. So I know that many of you are familiar with all these parks, and I hope you check out a park and get outside. The website is right there too to find all our resources about the State Parks Pass. And of course, this program was created by the California State Library in partnership with the California's First Partners Office, which of course is Jennifer Siebel-Newsom, and the California State Park System and Foundation, and the California Natural Resources Agency. All of them recognize the power of our public libraries in really getting the word out and getting resources out to the communities, and that's why it became a library accessible park pass. I hope everyone remembers this when they do want to go out to a state parks, that they make a pit stop at the library first to pick up their pass. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your leadership in always making these partnerships happen and function. All right, our final report this evening is an opportunity to celebrate San Francisco Public Library's inclusion in the Library Journal Index of Public Library Service for 2022. This is our trade publication. You have a copy of the article in your packets. I'm pleased to report your San Francisco Public Library is a 5-star library. This is the highest possible ranking. As background, the data included in these rankings is derived from the fiscal year 20 data provided to the Institute of Museums and Library Services as part of their annual public library survey. You may recall fiscal year 20 spans the period at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, so March 14th, 2020 to June 30th, 2020, when many of our metrics were impacted negatively by the closure. So physical circulation, visits, computer usage. Nonetheless, our cumulative utilization that year still surpassed our peers, who were no doubt also impacted by the pandemic-related closures. For context, of the 5,359 public libraries rated, only 258 libraries received stars, or roughly 4.8% of the sample. Of that sample, 85 of the 258 star libraries spread across multiple budget categories received the coveted 5-star rating. So by the numbers, we are in the top 2% nationally in terms of utilization metrics. There were only 2 peers in our budget category that you can see on this table, St. Louis County and Santa Clara County Library District here in our backyard, with a higher index score. So this recognition is just another testament to how much our community values and utilizes their library system. So in closing, I'd like to encourage all of the San Francisco Public Library staff and our commission to take a bow. You know, this is just the latest validation of service excellence in service to our community as we aspire to be the premier urban library in the country. And that concludes the City Librarian's report.
Thank you so much. This was really exciting today. We learned, I mean, I learned a lot. I saw a lot of open eyes up here on discovering new things. So this was terrific. So we're going to first open this up to public comment. We'll begin here in Corrett Auditorium and then move to our participants observing and watching via WebEx. So public comment on item number 5, the City Librarian's report is now open here in Corrett Auditorium.
Good evening, Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. First of all, I'd like to thank the presenters for presenting all of this very interesting information, all of which has to do with what the library is doing for the public. And I think that is really what's primary as far as what the library's function is and what your responsibility is for making sure that the library users get something good. With respect to a lot of this material, it wasn't clear to me where somebody would be able to find it. So, for example, President Wolf, where would one see this stuff? I, for example, was looking at the library double-page spread, which was very nice, on more than a month, which is Black History, and I was actually a little disappointed. I mean, nothing against any of the programs being presented, and they all look very interesting and good. But I was looking for Martin Luther King himself on Martin Luther King Day. And I didn't see anything in particular about Martin Luther King as any kind of a presentation for that day or the weekend on the library's website. And on this double-page spread, I only found a single item that had to do with Martin Luther King himself, a film in remembrance of Martin, a PBS home video, personal comments from family, friends, and advisors, and so on. But this was people talking about Martin Luther King and not himself, which I was seeking. I wanted to hear the real deal, the primary source. Amy Goodman actually did almost an hour long of excerpts from various speeches that he did, not just the most famous one that we tend to hear over and over again, the wonderful I Have a Dream speech. So I'm wondering where all the other stuff that we've seen would be available. With respect to the STAR report, it's a very interesting report that you've included with your packet, but I have some questions because, first of all, what are they measuring? Some of the definitions simply are not there. What is library website visits? And also the library's total score in its category of 30 million plus is third highest. But when you look at the smaller libraries, the score of the library is way lower, often down below half of those other libraries. And that question raises, the question it raises is why, and what do these scores mean, and what do the measures mean? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other further public comment here in Corrett Auditorium? Seeing no further public comment here, we'll turn to our participants via WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue at this time. Pause briefly to allow callers to join. Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Thank you, Operations. Seeing that there are no further comments through WebEx, public comment on item number 5, the City Librarian's Report, is now completed. And we now turn it to public discussion here from the commissioners. I know that Naomi, Nick, Michelle, and Michael are available to answer any questions. So are there any comments from my fellow commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Lomax Garducci.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that first of all, Naomi, the more than a month is so robust, and obviously you've engaged all forms of art, you know. But what I really love is the intergenerational piece of this and how youth and children are also included and focused, as well as for, you know, a plethora of other adult learners. And I just want to say it's just really, really a beautiful curation of Black history, culture, and heritage. And I just want to say thank you so much, because I can't imagine it being any better than what you and the team have put together. It can't get any better than that.
I really appreciate that. I'm definitely giving all praise to the team. They did an exemplary job at, reading the room, kind of knowing what the community has and will respond to, and kind of remaining in conversation with community to know that having those intergenerational programs are super important. It really, for the youth services team, it really is the bedrock, that family engagement. You have programming for families, you're going to cover everyone, all ages, and there's so many important engagement opportunities with each discrete age span up to adulthood. So the programs that we're offering were definitely well thought out, and we're seeing the fruits of some of that work in terms of, people coming to these events and getting reacquainted with this type of programming and being in community with other people in our location. So that's what we're all about.
One last comment on that is obviously it's Black history as opposed to African American history, and so you've included the African American story, and you have the whole Black diaspora with the various kind of I call it the Black global perspective and inclusion. And we know that San Francisco and the Bay Area is very much a diverse Black population. From those of us that are African American, such as myself, but you have many people that have come from other parts of the world that have migrated here, and their families have long histories as well. And I think that that's really important to do that.
Thank you for mentioning that. I was in the community just this past weekend, and I ran into a former staff member who is Senegalese, and he appreciates the range of programs that we offer for Black History Month, and that it's not just Black Americans, it's Caribbean folks, it's folks from the continent. It's, it's very expansive, the programming and the intention we put behind our programming. So I think the team has done a really wonderful job at capturing all of that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you to all the presenters. I always feel like this is my evening class once a month because I learn so much from all of you and all the work you do. I do have a couple questions for Nicholas. The program is fascinating, and I'm glad that we're increasing the number of hours. And this is just I just, because I was thinking of a lot of folks who will be interested in this. Do you offer any bilingual support for, like for any non-English speakers who want to do this type of work and, want to digitize their memories? And then part of my second question is, I know you mentioned that there is support technical support. To what extent is the technical support? I'm just thinking, like for someone who doesn't feel comfortable with technology and but do want to get albums or pictures or tapes. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
In terms of the bilingual support, I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, and I've helped people in that way. We have staff on the 5th floor who do speak Chinese, and we have not had anybody come to the lab who doesn't speak English yet. But I'm sure that it will happen. I don't have a great plan for that right now, unfortunately. I'm hoping to draw on the skills of my coworkers if that were to happen. And that's something I need to speak with my supervisor about. Absolutely, that we need to plan for that. I really appreciate that because, yeah, I mean, we had people visiting the website in Spanish and Chinese, and so there is some interest. But so far, we haven't had that experience within the library itself. But hopefully we will. And in terms of the technical assistance, yeah, I mean, it's a learning process. And so we want people to learn how to use the equipment. So we do, when somebody comes in and they might express a little hesitation. Hopefully the people who come in are not going to be scared of the technology. Maybe they might not know how to use it, but hopefully if they're there, they're willing to learn and utilize the technology. So yeah, I mean, I've sat there with people for half an hour and showed them how to use the scanner and the how to create a new track on GarageBand and listen to their stuff that they're digitizing. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's like you're working with them one-on-one and showing them I wrote this whole binder that has all the workflows, and people have been using that. And people have been telling me that they downloaded the PDFs beforehand and read them and prepared themselves. But if they come in and they're not exactly ready, then yeah, I mean, I'll sit with them for not the whole time because it's a do-it-yourself DigiLab. And so there's that aspect where we're trying to show them that they can do this if they just maybe get over the fear a little bit. So yeah, it's a didactic interaction. I'm showing them how to use these machines, and with the idea that after I show them once or twice that they'll be able to do it themselves. And if somebody needs a little more assistance, sometimes there's errors, sometimes there's unexpected anomalies. Yeah, I mean, they call us out and we'll sit with them and work it out. I mean, we have 3 hours in the booth, so it's quite a bit of time to experience some hiccups, some false starts, and so people have been really good about kind of digging in and really trying to understand what's going on. That's been my experience so far.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for the lab. I'm pretty sure it's going to pick up, and we might need to think about increasing the days and hours because I feel that it's something that a lot of people will benefit from. So
I've heard nothing but excited comments and gratitude so far. People have been so excited about it. And people walk by the study room where it's at, and they kind of look at all the equipment and come over and talk to us at the reference desk. And yeah, just regular people are curious about it.
And I think that it really is a service. Like you said, how it ties to the historical aspect of it. Because if we don't digitize some of these documents or some of these videos, they might get lost. And,
absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Lomax-Garducci, I think you wanted to say something more.
I was just going to say very quickly, Dr. Lopez made a lot of really good points. I just want to put it on the record that this is a democratization of the archival process. You have to think that people that used to be able to have good records were people that were generally in an upper socioeconomic class. And so there is a really beautiful kind of leveling the playing field of access that this particular project is doing. And I can't wait to see what that does when you kind of have the citizen archivist, because archivists is usually people with a lot of training and, again, people that have access to both education and social class that goes with that. But to democratize one's memories in a way where they can do it themselves is really quite revolutionary. And so I can't wait to see how it unfolds. But this is really, I think, a very, very important social equity engagement for the library.
Absolutely. I mean, just to digitize 8mm film costs, $50 or $100 just for one reel, and now it's free. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments from the commissioners? I just want to add, if I do my arithmetic correctly, you're able to see currently 100 people a year, which is not very many. So I love the idea that you're going to be adding. I'll like to think of this as maybe the pilot. And if we think of it as the pilot, I'm really looking forward to further updates as this really grows, because I think it will. And then, of course, in 25 years, there's going to be a new DigiLab, DIY DigiLab, to fix what we just did. So, because
neural link in your head.
because technology is constantly changing, but I think this is such a wonderful effort. It's really great that you were able to present, Nick. It was really nice to meet you and hear about what you do. I want to thank Naomi for your continued, really dedicated and leadership role for the library and the communities. And Michelle, we always love hearing from you. And I love that the park, this collaboration with the park is just continuing with the California State Park System. And bravo to everybody for the 5-star. That's a really fantastic way to start the year, end this meeting, start the year. And just want to acknowledge that so many of these programs are made possible from the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. So thank you for your support. With that, we end item number 5 and we move into our final item, which is the adjournment of today's meeting. And I want to see if there is a commissioner who would like to, I'm sorry, we have to open it to public comment. I'm sorry. Of course. So we will start with public comment, and public comment is now open in Correct Auditorium, and we will follow it by those on WebEx.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You've all been appointed to represent the public and the city in policy here, and I think you should not adjourn until you insist that you put on the agenda that you put on future agendas near the end or at the end of the meeting what you would like to see discussed and or acted upon at future meetings. You've done this in the past. Many other bodies do this currently. And as an example, the president said she loves budget discussions. Well, I do too. But there was no response when I talked about the book, print book, and e-book balance. You're spending $20 million, pretty much evenly divided, and there's been no discussion about how or why you split the money in the way that you have done. That seems to me to be necessary discussion that you should be asking for. What are the measures? What are the measures? How do the scores get figured out? The library had a score of 1573 on this 5-star thing, and the lowest budget libraries had in their charts this many libraries who had a higher score than San Francisco Public Library. This is in the 100,000 to 200,000 a year range. And over here, this many libraries had more score than San Francisco Public Library. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think that it is worth talking about what's being measured, how it's being measured, and what is the meaning of it. Because after all, that's presumably what your library is putting out for the public. And finally, I think that there hasn't been any mention of the cut in evening open hours. I really think you need to budget for that. And I think you also need to budget for informing people about what these programs are, how they're going to find out about the very generally terrific programs that the library has and which you've praised. How about getting the word out to the public? I go to libraries fairly often. I'm online fairly often. Some of the stuff I wouldn't be aware of if I didn't come to a library commission meeting. I certainly think more people than come to library commission meetings are going to be interested in many of these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Corrett Auditorium?
Good evening, Library Commission, City Librarian. My name is Maurice Rivers. I'm the Executive Director of the OMI Cultural Participation Project, San Francisco native and lifelong resident of the OMI community. And I'm very, very excited to hear about the cultural programming that I've been seeing for the last hour. And I will be working very closely with Ingleside's new librarian, shout out to Catherine Starr, and putting on some cultural programming at Ingleside Branch. So thank you guys for all the great work you're doing. Good night.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any further comment here in Corrett Auditorium? Seeing no further comment here in Corrett, we will now move to participants on WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, I have one commenter in the queue. Caller number 7, your time begins now.
Hello, Library Commissioners. I'm on WebEx, but I called in because I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand on the WebEx program or get unmuted. Hello, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, can you tell me how to raise my hand on WebEx? Because I'm hearing both audio from my phone and from the computer right now. If anyone's responding to me, I can't hear you. I can only hear my own voice.
Icon found at the bottom of the participant panel in WebEx.
Bottom of the participant panel. I don't see anything. There's a mute thing next to my name, but clicking it doesn't do anything. Clicking on public comment doesn't do anything.
I can hear you.
Well, let me mute my computer and I'll just talk to you on the phone because I'm getting multiple voices. It's confusing. You can still hear me now.
Yes, we can still.
Okay. Your voice is coming in very faint, so I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that technically, but several areas I want to comment on. First of all, my name is Starchild. I'm chair of the Libertarian Party of San Francisco. One is I recently learned about a mixed studio program that you have, which has like a sound lab. You can come in and make music and jam and stuff, which I think is awesome. But I found out they only allow teens to use it. And it seems unfortunate to me that I don't see any reason for age discrimination around this program. I question what I presume is the presumption that maybe teens wouldn't want to hang out there and use the space if older people were also able to do so. That seems like an unwarranted assumption that teens are going to be prejudiced against older people. That I don't know if there's actual evidence for that, but I think, lots of older people, like, adults like myself, would be interested in using the space. If they can't just have it all open to everyone all the time, which I think would be best, perhaps they could have different hours for teens and adults to use it. So that it isn't just, again, a whole group of people, majority of the population, shut out of this interesting and valuable program, on the basis of age discrimination. Second item, and actually, I'll pause here to allow any response for that from the commissioners, if anyone has any thoughts on that. I can't hear anything, so I don't know if anyone's saying anything. Hello?
Caller number 7.
Your voice is coming through very intermittently.
Caller number 7. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There were no comments.
Okay. I would like feedback on that. Is this something you'd consider doing? Opening a mixed studio to adult participation?
Margot Schaub, you can follow up with me at the library. I'm Margot, margoshaub@sfpl.org, and I'm happy to help.
What's your phone number, please? Phone number, please.
I can give you my email, which is Margot, MARGOT.
Well, let me give you my number. You can call me if you don't want to give me your number. I'd rather do it by phone if that's okay. 415.
Caller number 7, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your effort to call in and offer your comment. Are there any further commenters in the queue on WebEx?
Madam President, at this time, there are no additional callers in the queue.
Thank you. Hearing that there are no further comments on WebEx, public comment on agenda item number 6 is now complete and closed. We now turn to the commission is there someone who would like to make a motion to adjourn the commission meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's commission meeting.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Lomez Garducci and a second from Commissioner Huang to adjourn today's meeting.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned, and we will see you back here on February 2nd, and not the usual time, so it's February 2nd for our next commission meeting. Thank you very much, and here's to a good end of January. Stay dry, healthy, and safe.